Bill of Rights, the library materials should be provided for the interest, information, and enlightenment of all people, and not to be removed due to partisan or doctrinal disapproval. So ultimately, why does the library host a political debate? Because for centuries in libraries, freedom has been the focus behind the work that we do to support individual liberty of all people through freedom of access of and access to information. So why is fighting for freedom so important? Going back to 1215, the founding of the Magna Carta, which was created by the English barons to limit the king's power, protect their individual rights and property, establishing principles like the right to a fair trial. The push for freedom led to the English Bill of Rights in 1689. It was again passed in response to King James II abuses of power and guaranteed specific rights such as freedom of speech for parliament members, the right to free elections, and protection from excessive bail and cruel and unusual punishment. Our own Constitution in 1791 sought to protect essential liberties like freedom of speech, religion, press, and freedom of assembly and petition, which have become vital to our American identity and self-government. So regardless of what side you are on this evening, we in libraries are on the side of freedom and individual liberties. This is the side that promotes freedom of speech, as our forefathers had fought and died across multiple centuries of wars. This is the side that says censorship in any form is against our freedom of speech and our fundamental rights is guaranteed by our Constitution. This is the side that says we reserve the right to peacefully gather and advocate, like this evening, for our cause. This is the side that says we respect differences of opinion, so much so that we will host nights like tonight where we debate all across this country. This is the side that says if you don't agree with the person sitting next to you, you have the right to vote in a free and open election. And lastly, this is the side that says if you truly want to change government, you could start like tonight and run for office. In closing, we are here this evening as part of the process of maintaining our rights of individual liberty and the dynamic process of democratic self-governance. Thank you for being here this evening with us. Thank you to our candidates for being willing to engage in this process with us. And thank you to everyone here for understanding the critical role of freedom for all, and particularly for freedom for libraries against censorship. And now I'm going to turn it over to Avery Lieberman, the publisher for Chester County Press.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the first town hall hosted by the Chester County Press. Tonight we host current Mayor Matt Fetick and former Mayor Leon Spencer in a mayoral conversation. I want to start by thanking the library, Matt and Leon, Richard, and of course all of you for being here tonight. I'm Avery Lieberman, the publisher of the Chester County Press and the AdPro magazines. Beyond that, I'm a lifelong Southern Chester County resident, with the last 10 years being spent in the Kennett Borough. I'm also the vice chair of the Historic Architecture Review Board and mother of 2 young daughters. I come here tonight not only in a professional manner, but with a true investment into the future of this town. Kennett, especially over the last 2 decades, has seen great expansion. We have festivals and holiday celebrations, markets of all kinds, and many events that celebrate the culture of this amazing town. We have new apartments, restaurants and shops, boutique hotels, and many other establishments that drive people to visit and to move here. However, with growth does come its challenges. I'm sure many of you come here tonight with the same issues in mind. The forward fly problem many of us face in our homes, traffic concerns, the redevelopment of the MVF site, the affordability of living in this town are, I'm sure, at the forefront of our minds. Are we a small Chester County haven, or are we a booming tourist town? How do we marry those two while still preserving the modest and historical character of our hometown? In these current times, it's very easy to get lost in the federal and worldwide news and elections. We must not forget, though, how important local leadership, community, and involvement is, and how important it is to stay locally informed. Every vote that is cast on November 4th in this town matters. Our leadership will help shape the foreseeable future of the borough. Many of us have been here our whole lives, while many of us are starting new lives here. We will all continue to see Kennett evolve. All of our voices matter, and it is never too late to get involved. The conversation doesn't end here tonight. I hope you take away Matt and Leon's answers and use them to make an informed decision in this election. I hope the residents of this remarkable town continue to stay engaged and use our voices into the meaningful impact that we can make as a community. I would now like to introduce Richard Gall, the Associate Editor of the Chester County Press. He will moderate the conversation between the candidates. After that, we move on on to the question and answer portion with the audience. We ask that the questions remain relevant, and throughout the evening, please treat the conversation and the candidates with respect.
Check, check. Got it. Thank you, Chris. Let's give Chris a round of applause. He really, his opening addresses at all of these events here in this wonderful room speak so clearly to the importance of libraries in our area. And we thank the entire library staff for allowing us, the Chester County Press, to come in for an hour and have this conversation. Avery spelled everything out, but there's a couple of little housekeeping duties I wish to pass along. Neither Matt or Leon has been given questions in advance. I just wanted to make that positively clear. I'll chat for about a half hour with them here, and then we're going to turn it back over to Avery, who's going to kind of portray Phil Donahue and kind of just go up in the audience and invite all of you to ask questions of the candidates. Again, to echo Avery's words and request that I wish to have the audience participation part of this conversation. And it is a conversation, it's not a debate. Be civil and be courteous of not only the candidates, but also of your fellow audience members. So it gives me great privilege to introduce to you the two candidates for the next mayor of Kennett Square. Ladies and gentlemen, current mayor Matt Fetick and longtime mayor Leon Spencer. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for agreeing to meet with us tonight. And in the interests of time, let us begin. Also, in the interest of decency and against the grain of our poisonous national rhetoric, which I think all of us are fed up with, I would like each candidate. Now, okay, this is the kumbaya moment of tonight's event, but I trust you all. Trust me, all the rest of the questions are poignant and are pertinent exactly to the lives you all lead in this area. But the question I would like to ask each candidate is to pay a compliment to the other candidate. Matt, start with you.
Sure. Mr. Spencer has certainly been a lifelong resident who has poured his heart and soul into this community. I have frequently referred to him as the Mayor Emeritus because everywhere we go, Leon is really known as the mayor for Kennett Square in the way he's served and has cared about this community for a long time.
Leon.
I pay a compliment to Matt, and this goes back to the year 2009, when it was time for me to decide whether or not to re-up my candidacy for mayor. And he came to me at the old Harrington's Coffee House and said, I'm thinking about running for mayor, but I won't do it if you think you're going to do it because I like what you've done. That to me is a sign of a very respectful human being, and that's all I can say that I have for him is utmost respect.
Thanks.
Let's talk about the reasons why you are running for another term as the mayor of Kennett Square. Let's start again with you, Matt. Why are you running for another term? Talk a little bit about that.
Sure. A couple of things. There's a few important projects to me that are not yet finished that I think really are important to our community that I want to see over the finish line. Number one is the development of the MVF site. I think it is really important that we look at the way that property is cleaned up, that we look at the way the developers develop that property, and that it is really done with full transparency and the ability for a lot of community input. So that's one thing that is incredibly important to me, is that I see that over the finish line. I expect that we'll see approval for development there within the next couple of years. Another key issue that's important to me is getting the forward fly issue over the finish line. Of course, the community's been dealing with that for a long time. A year ago, in December, I issued an emergency declaration, which I think has been the first domino in getting the state and the county, the Department of Agriculture and the state involved. It is the first time that the state, and we're just at the beginning, right? But it's the first time that the state came out with any regulatory requirements, the steaming off and specifically to New Garden Township and Kennett Township. We also, because of that emergency order, we were able to submit the first of 3 products for emergency approval through EPA. And normally, so the one product that was just approved, the process normally can take 2 to 3 years. They made their application in March and they had full approval by June. And that first product landed here in August, and farmers had access to it in September. So there is still a lot of work to happen there. But those are 2 critical projects for me to do that. And I would say lastly, continuing to focus on affordable housing and what that looks like on there.
No doubt, 2 or 3 topics that will probably be asked in further detail by the audience members during the Q&A portion of the event. Leon, what are the reasons why you're seeking to become the next mayor of Kennett?
3 short answers. Number 1 is an overarching love of people. I think you have to have that. Number 2 is the love of this community. Been a part of this community for many years, and it's a great place. And the third answer is that I have an affinity for unity. I sense divisiveness that, unfortunately, and you alluded to this earlier, much of it's driven from the federal level. There's no time for that. There's no place for that. So I have a drive within me, and always have, to bring people together. That has a lot to do with why I'm doing this.
Thank you, each of you. I want to talk and bring the topic of discussion to what I think, and you alluded to it before, Matt, and that is, I think a person in my position, as a person in my position, I look at this borough from the standpoint of 2 non-divergent paths that are running parallel to each other, and in my estimation and the estimation of a lot of other people, are about to head-on collide with each other, if they have not done so already. And I'm speaking about progress and oversaturation. And while Kennett Square continues to enjoy a resurgence of popularity, it comes at the cost of those who wanted a financial stake in the action. And mostly I'm speaking about real estate developers. The truth is this, that within the last several years, residential complexes have sprung up from the east end of the borough to the west. Everyone here tonight, no doubt, knows that. And it's safe to say, if I may say so myself, that most residents I've spoken to are fed up and believe that this has gotten way, way out of hand. How will you, if reelected, address this new reality in an attempt to curb overdevelopment and, in a longer sense, the redefinition of Kennett Square and the disappearance, in my own estimation, of this borough? We're going to start with you, Leon.
You know, it's kind of nice when you're a student and you know that a test is upcoming. You have a chance to study the questions. You're asking a lot, and this is good. Let me just put it to you this way. What I hear from people often, and from a lot of people, is they are challenged by the fact that any residential projects, any developmental projects that have ensued, that have taken place here in the last 3 or 4 years, have all carried a label of luxury. If I look at the property out at Waywood, that it's a luxury living. If I take where the old car dealerships used to be on State Street. The sign still says luxury. If I look at North Walnut Road across from the park, it says luxury townhomes. What most people here need is something that says affordable. And we talk about it, but that's what they need to see. Affordable does not necessarily mean that it is Section 8 property. They're not the same. They're not the same thing. We need to think in terms of people who have modest incomes. And that's a lot of people in this room, including those who are, like my wife and like me, are on fixed incomes. That, to me, is where the emphasis has to be. So, as any development that we do, any future development, including the property that I know we're going to talk about, has to be for affordable living, not so much for luxury. Understand, please, we're not saying that people who have luxury budgets shouldn't live here. We know, and I hear this all the time, Kennett Square is a place to come to. Kennett Square is the place to be. And we love that. There's good reason for that. But make sure that in that discussion, in that thought process, it includes average people who want to come here, who want to live here, and for families who've lived here for years, who want to remain here, parents with grandchildren who want to live here. That is all important.
But how does, let's just fast forward and you become the next mayor of Kennett Square. How do you and the council begin to really address this problem? In other words, just to put the finger in the dike of before the wave starts to come. Because when is the tipping point on this? You know, when is enough enough? And I think that's a question that a lot of people are asking, and a lot of people are frustrated. So, does the council and does the mayor of Kennett Square have the power to meet with these real estate developers and say, enough? How do they have the power to initiate ordinances to curb overdevelopment? Because we're running out of space in this borough. Thoughts? You've been in this position before.
Yes.
So.
Yes. The council has no choice but to say to developers, enough. And that starts now. There's no choice. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm saying. Listen, you want to come here and you want to develop here, that's fine. That's fine. But you will do it based on the needs of this community, not just as developers who come in and have the opportunity to build. You will do it based on the needs and desires of this community. And the overwhelming need and desire of this community is for affordable housing. Affordable housing. So the new council has no choice but to put a stop to it. That is my opinion.
Question for you.
Sure. Yeah, I think there are two separate topics, right? One is overall volume of construction, number of units that we introduce to the community, and of course the affordable or attainable housing. The challenge with affordable housing is that it costs the same amount of money to build an affordable home as it does a market rate home, right? The sticks and bricks cost the exact same dollars. So the only way that you can introduce affordability, especially in the new construction side, is you have to partner with a developer who's willing to go and get the credits so that they can offer the properties at a lower cost. So when Red Clay Manor, which is the senior living complex that opened up 2 years ago here in the borough, which is all affordable senior housing, when that project was being worked on, we worked very closely with HUD to get the developer the credits that they needed. We made multiple calls and letters of support and met HUD out there at Red Clay Manor and encouraged them to fund that project. By funding that project, now we have affordable senior housing, and it's full, right? So we probably could do 3 more Red Clay Manors. When the developer for the MVF site came and said, hey, we're nearing the end of the cleanup of the MVF site, and as we near the ending of that cleanup, we want to start talking about what we're going to develop, what types of homes and what that's going to look like. And we had, I remember clear as day, the first conversation we had, we said specifically, if there is not an affordable component there, I won't support it. If there is not an affordable component, there will be no support. And the nice thing is that the MVF project is going to require a significant amount of input from council because it is currently zoned industrial. So to change it to residential construction, residential zoning, they have to work with us or we won't give them the approval. If just this week, as they met with Planning Commission and started looking at what's next there, they tabled their request for the ordinance change because they were not able to figure out how to guarantee the affordable component while waiting to get information back, whether they'd be approved for the grants, approved for the tax credits and those things. And rightfully so, Planning Commission worked with them to table that until they can come back with a guarantee. We can't take their word for it that they're definitely that they'll do affordable. It's got to be included at the beginning or there'll be no teeth later. So those are two specific things that I can point to as far as affordability, which is working with HUD. Rob Ford is the Mid-Atlantic Director for HUD. He oversees Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, and he's fantastic. Built a relationship with them when we were doing Red Clay Manor. And when I reached out to him recently, he said, look, we've got all these programs. We're not sure at the federal level what % we're gonna get funded for next year, right? And so that, of course, could be a problem for getting any type of affordable housing approved simultaneously. So we're gonna have to hold off on any approvals until we are guaranteed that there'll be an affordable component there. And I think when you look at, I don't know that there's any other large-scale tracks left, outside of the MVF as far as another big apartment complex or something going in. But we certainly can look at the way we do density and how that works. But keep in mind, for a developer, for them to offer affordable components, they have to have a trade-off, right? Like they have to make money somewhere because it costs them the same amount of money. So you give them the trade-off by giving them density and allowing them to build maybe 15% more so that they can afford to offer affordable homes. So it's a trade-off, right? You go back and forth.
Yeah, I can't go to the next question before unless I follow up on the topic you just brought up, and that's a topic known as the NVF land development. My question is very simple, and it's a question that has been asked thousands of times to the borough, to stakeholders in this area. How clean is this place?
Yeah, so it is certainly incumbent upon the owner to ensure that the cleanup is correct, right? And so the way that process works is that the owner submitted a cleanup remediation plan to both DEP and EPA. Both have regulatory jurisdiction over the cleanup. That plan was submitted, I believe it's almost 11 years ago. And then as the cleanup takes place, the engineers that oversee the cleanup for them submit ongoing reports. Cleaned up, this is where it went, and go through it. It is my understanding in talking to the regional DEP rep that they are about 85% cleaned up. Right now, there is no additional soils to be removed. There are monitoring wells that have been set up for the last year, and as of the last check of the monitoring wells, they have all passed with no challenges. So the monitoring wells are tracking the groundwater infiltration of the PCBs. So the testing has come back positively. We were due to have DEP and EPA come out and meet with residents this month and share how they oversee that process, how they regulate it, what that looks like. We were going to do a town hall so residents could ask those questions. And of course, they had to cancel due to the government shutdown. EPA is not working, and DEP only wants to come with EPA because they have a symbiotic relationship, and there are questions that they can't answer without the other being here. So I think, and that is a critical component to me, they need to be here, the regulators need to sit here, and they need to answer questions from the community to assure that the site has been cleaned up to their standards. But I don't think we can do it through paperwork. I believe that the regulators who are reviewing those reports should sit here and answer those questions.
Thank you very much for answering that follow-up question. I know we're going all over the map here with regard to the future of Kennett Square, but I would be remiss if I did not bring up the next topic and get your opinions on this. In February of this year, Immigration and Customs Enforcement performed a raid on Chavis Tires, a business we all know where it is, less than a mile away from where we speak right now. In late January, ICE conducted a series of operations in other parts of Chester County that resulted in the arrest of 44 undocumented individuals. It should be noted that 21 of them had prior criminal convictions and that 23 of them had immigration law violations. On one side of the argument, those who support deportations believe it is relieving our towns of undocumented citizens. And on the other side, there is the belief that these raids are disproportionately going after innocent families who have come to the United States to seek a better life for their children and themselves. Half of this population you both know well, of this borough continues to live in constant fear that they too will be deported. I wanted to get your opinions on where you both stand on the issue right now. Let's start with you, Matt.
The immigration issue that we are sitting with and faced with today is an abysmal failure on both parties to do comprehensive immigration reform. Neither party has stood up and done what they needed to do at the federal level to manage immigration the way it should be. I do not support the immigration enforcement that we're currently experiencing. I do not support warrantless arrests. I do not support racial profiling. I do not support ICE officers standing in our shopping centers on the corner of our streets and stopping people based on the color of their skin and requiring them to provide ID. I do not support those in any way, shape, or form. As a former police officer, I think in Criminal Justice 101, we learned that you don't arrest people without a valid judicial warrant. And so I don't support those things in any way, shape, or form. When these raids started in the spring, it was earth-shattering for many of our residents. I remember getting a call from the superintendent of schools, Kimberly, who's fantastic, the new superintendent, called me up and she said, Matt, I have students sitting here that are afraid to walk out of the building and walk home. They're either afraid they're gonna get picked up or they're afraid they're gonna go home and find that their parents aren't there, right? And she said, I'm sitting here right now with them. And thankfully, we were able to get a group of folks together very quickly that were willing to drive kids home, network around that to help. There are a lot of different people working together, kind of behind the scenes to support these issues of raids where somebody is arrested and we can't find them for days. There is a really nice network of elected officials that work kind of quietly behind the scenes to solve some of these problems. I'm very thankful at the moment. I've built a really nice relationship with Senator Fetterman's Deputy Chief of Staff in the Philadelphia office, and her office is directly below the regional Philadelphia Director of ICE. And I've had the opportunity a couple of times to reach out to her directly and say, we can't find this person who was arrested 2 days ago. This family's distraught. And we have an attorney that would like to meet with them. And thankfully, she walks up 2 floors, knocks on the door and says, we need this information right now. And there is thankfully a working communication there. So we have the resources to deal with the urgent emergency piece of it. And I'll tell you, we had a meeting with Senator Fetterman's office about this. There is no desire whatsoever, even from Senator Fetterman's office, to try to bring immigration reform to the forefront of any legislative session. They believe that it doesn't go anywhere. They believe that there is nothing, there's been no change to the immigration law in 26 years. And nobody is willing to do it. And we had this harsh conversation as I said, we've got to do something here. And his chief of staff said, it is not something we're going to be tackling in this session. It's not coming up and it's not there. So that's a problem. So what do? We, in Kennett Square, we rewrote our police department's SOPs, their standard operating procedures, on how we interact with ICE when ICE officers are here. So we rewrote that policy with our legal counsel. We introduced that in March and retrained our officers on what that looks like. Our policy is that we do not get involved with any type of ICE arrest. If we need to stand by as a, say that there's an issue there with the community is distraught or people are upset, our officers can stand by and be helpful to the community, but we do not affect or participate in immigration arrests or things like that. So we were able to update those things, and that's where we are, and it's a mess.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't you declare Kennett Square as a sanctuary city several years ago? You did not. Okay.
No, absolutely not.
Okay. Leon, you've had time to think about this question. What are your thoughts on it?
I agree with 98% of what the mayor just said. You don't racial profile people. You just don't do that. These are human beings, just like everyone in this room. They are human beings, and they need to be treated as such and with respect. I served for several years as the county supervisor of Head Start, and I recently was talking to one of the, I think she is the registrar for Chester County Head Start now, who explained to me, she's on the Family Promise Board, and we serve together, and she said at the end of this past school year, the attendance was at an all-time low. And the reason the attendance was at an all-time low is for the same things that the mayor just talked about. People are afraid to leave their houses. They're afraid of this. I am absolutely, I'm not appalled, but I am totally upset to hear that the rhetoric about immigration reform is simply that. It's just rhetoric. Nothing is done. I think that this small town that depends upon the concentration of immigrant people needs to band together and say, hey, look here, you want to get reelected? Then this is what you're going to do. You're going to make sure that people who want to live in the United States of America, who work already, get the green cards, to do all the things that they have to do, but they want to live in the United States of America, and they don't have criminal records, and they simply want to form something for their families, you will respond. You will expedite a process that allows for immigration reform. Give them their citizenship. We have to do that. And the only way it's going to happen, since it's, and Matt's right, if the feds aren't going to do it, then we, as a community that is so dependent upon immigrants, has to form together and force the issue. That's what I believe. I'm not much of a rebel, but sometimes you got to be. That's the way I see it.
Thank you both. I want to turn our attention now to the issue of safety. And I'll start with Matt. Most of these questions are to Matt about this particular topic. Matt, what are fire and EMS services, what fire and EMS services are borough residents currently receiving, and from what resource?
So fire and EMS services now come through the regional fire and EMS department, which was the banding together of the Kennett Fire Company, Longwood Fire Company, and Pomarlin Fire Company. The leadership, each department has its own chief. The chief over the regional department is Chief McCarthy. So our fire and EMS services come directly through the regional department now.
Okay. Matt, you and the borough, may have been the former borough council, made the decision to leave the Kennett Fire and EMS Regional Commission's membership last year. Do you want to go into the reasons why?
Sure. I mean, I can speak from my side. I don't know that I can answer for council.
Sure.
And ultimately, it's council that has the vote to do that,
Correct.
right? So the mayor doesn't get that vote. My concern with regional fire and EMS is specifically at the agreement between the municipalities. It is not with the regionalization of fire and EMS, which I think has greatly improved the quality of fire and EMS. I think it has improved the morale, it has improved the services. My biggest concern was with the document between the municipalities, and it's very limited to the way the funding works. In that agreement, it is very clear that if the commission decides to raise the cost, therefore everyone's contribution by X%, the municipalities must do that. So if the commission says, hey, we're going to raise the contributions by 25% this year, then the borough must participate in that, right? Without any opportunity to withdraw, without any opportunity to do anything, you're stuck there. And my concern at the time when we were working through that was, we can't get that exposure out there to an unlimited number, and that it could go wherever it would go. Because then, right, if our other municipalities have the ability to, if they have the ability to pay, and they want to change the service level or buy new equipment, but the borough needs to stagnate that and say, not this year, we can do it next year. We lose that control in that intermunicipal agreement. So my concern was on the intermunicipal agreement, not the other structures. And we definitely, in looking at totality for the last several years, we underfunded fire and EMS. They had a lot of catching up to do. To give you an idea, I think about 5 years ago, our contribution was about $275,000 per year. It might have been 300. It was right out there. And this year, it's just under 900,000. So we had a big leap, and we had a big gap to fill there. And I think the concern for me has always been the document between the municipalities and how we make that document better. And so that has been my only concern, is that to give you an example, right now we're in budget season, and the department heads come in, right? And the public works director wants these 5 things this year, and the police chief wants this, finance wants this, and everybody wants something. It's up to the team to say, well, you don't get a new police car this year, but you get a new truck for public works, and they sit around and work through that. So you can't get it this year, got to get it next year. The challenge with the intermunicipal agreement for the Fire and EMS Commission is that we have that opportunity to say, we can't do it this year, we do it next year. Now, I will say that when we did bring that up, that other commission members were gracious and allowed the borough a pause where everybody else did take a higher portion, and the borough's was capped for a year, so they were understanding about that issue. That is for sure. But I think, again, from my side, it was always about the risk that if that didn't happen, that it just exposed us to numbers that we couldn't manage.
Yeah.
That's it.
Would you, in your estimation, your opinion, do you think that the Borough Council would consider the possibility of rejoining or reestablishing a membership in the Fire and EMS Committee?
Absolutely. That's a conversation we're having now. I'm not part of those discussions at the moment, but the current council has suggested, and we've had this conversation, that the municipalities, not the firefighters and the EMT providers or EMS providers, they need to do what their job is. It's our job as the elected officials is to hammer out an agreement that we can all live with. And I believe that there's some traction and some movement there. But absolutely, I would love to see fire and EMS regionalized. I'd love to see police work regionalized. I'd love to see public works, regionalized. There's a lot that we could do together.
Leon, should you be elected as the new mayor of Kennett Square, what decisions would you make regarding the borough's membership in the Kennett Fire and EMS Regional Commission?
From my lens, I think it's required. I think it's important that the citizens realize that there is a viable fire and EMS regional commission in place. I think what you do initially is, as a collective body, you sit and you take a look at the formula, which I think is what Matt is suggesting, or Mayor is suggesting here. You sit together, all the members of the commission, and you take a look at the formula, and you make adjustments to the formula where it's more affordable for everyone. I understand that some of it is driven by state mandate, and I haven't studied it enough to know that. But despite that, I think it can't be that hard. It could be beneficial to all participants if you take a look at the formula and say, do we really need that? If it complies with the state mandate, do we need certain elements of this operation to exist? And you get rid of those things that are costly beyond reason, so that it becomes affordable for all participants. That's my thought.
Let's, as we we're going to slowly start to wrap and then turn the attention onto the audience. Let's talk about your respective political affiliations as a way of understanding a little bit more about your basic ideals and your beliefs as it applies to your role and your roles as longtime elected officials. Matt, you once told me that when you were a kid, you helped your mom canvass for Ronald Reagan in 1980. And you came to your position as a Republican. But I'll never forget the conversation we had in 2020 when you told me that you were leaving the Republican Party in the middle of your second term. What were the factors involved with that decision, Matt? For the people who do not know the foundational principles that pushed you in that other direction to become a Democrat.
Sure. Yes, when I was first elected, I was elected as a Republican. I grew up in a Republican household, knocked doors. I remember my mom, and she went to Reagan's inauguration. Right? She was a driving force in Chester County for that election. And, ultimately for me, it really came down to some of the social issues specifically. The Republican Party really started leaning too far into our personal lives. And I could not continue to be a part of a party that wants to invalidate my family. And association with that party, which as of today, I don't know if you saw the headlines, that the Supreme Court, at the request of several Republican attorney generals, is going to take up, or is deciding whether they're going to take up the right to same-sex marriage. And as someone who's in a same-sex long-term 20 years, that we have 3 kids together in there, I can't be associated with, affiliated with, or something that wants to invalidate my family. So that was the original driving force. And I also felt that there were issues regarding immigration that I couldn't reckon with being here in Kennett Square. I couldn't reckon I couldn't work within the party. I sat down, at the time, the chair of the party was Skip Bryan, the chair of the Chester County Republicans. And I sat down with Skip and said, I'm going to change parties. At the time, I was part of the executive board of the Republican Party. And I sat down and said, I can't do this, right? I come to a meeting, and I'll never forget, the treasurer, I can see her, she stood up there and she wanted to circulate a petition specifically regarding same-sex marriage, and at the local county level. And I looked at Skip and I said, I'm in the room. You see me? I'm sitting here. Like, I'm literally sitting in this room with you, and you want to invalidate my family. So, I went back and said, I can't do that. So I more than happily joined the Democratic Party. And I will tell you, I don't know if this is part of the question or not, but one of the things that I will tell you is that the connections through the Democratic Party at the moment are substantial, right? Our state representative, Chris Sappy, is a Democrat. Our state senator, John Kane, is a Democrat. The 2 county commissioners that have the majority are Democrats. Our Congresswoman, Chrissy Houlihan, is a Democrat. Our governor is a Democrat. And truly, I believe, having switched parties, I have been given more access to them and to those services, which I think has made a huge impact in the grants. In the last 4 years, the borough, if you don't know, has brought in almost $12 million in grant money in the last 4 years, which is more money than we brought in through property taxes. More money than we've brought in property taxes came in through grant money. And those were all county and state grants. And we worked hard for that money. In not only submitting the grant proposals, but picking up the phone. And I remember calling John Kane and saying, John, I need this grant. We need to do this. And by connecting and seeing and socializing with them, being with them, saying, hey, this is coming across your desk. Can we get your attention on that? It has made a huge difference on there. I text with Secretary Redding, the Secretary of Agriculture, regarding the forward fly issue. this is where we are. We're not seeing this improvement. We need more help. I text directly with the secretary. I text directly with the deputy chief of staff for the governor regarding that issue. I text with him directly, Larry Hellstrom, and say, Larry, we're not making progress here. We need more things done. And it does, being a Democrat today here makes a difference for me and my family, but also for the resources that you bring to the borough.
Thank you. Question for you, Leon. As every Republican right now in the country is going through, you are carrying the temperament of the National Republican Party on your back. Whether or not you respect it or not, you can't get away from it. And for a lot of people, Republicans and Democrats, conservatives and liberals alike, the tenor has become untenable. And I was curious to know, what is it like for you as a Republican now, seeing what's happening to our national discourse as, in part, I'll say, in part, perpetuated by the current administration? How are you coping with that, and what is your opinion on that as you move forward?
First of all, let me say, germane to this role as the mayor of a town, politics has no place in it at all. The R in front of my name is a tribute to my parents. Now, I said that to a couple recently, and they said to me in rather offensive language, "We don't care about your parents." Well, I do. My parents made many sacrifices for me, helped me to grow up in a conservative, faith-based Christian home, so the R is there as a tribute to them. That's the extent of it. The mayor, the titular head of a community, has no place being political. It's a public service. You're a public servant. That's where I am. So, when you talk about being Republican, it's like being a salmon. You're constantly swimming upstream. Republican Party is the Republican Party, but that's not what my practice is. My practice is that of a public servant. Track record will show that. So, again, I'm saying to you that this particular office is not about politics. It's about public service, and that's the way I live. That's what I do.
Thank you all very, very much for your astute and honest comments. I have one more question to ask, and then it comes time for Avery to take over this auditorium. And that last question is one for both of you. If you had a chance to do so, are there decisions you have made as mayor that you would like to go back and fix or remove? Do you admit mistakes? And if so, is there a moment in your mayoral tenure that you would fix if you could?
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out where to start, right? There's so many things that you look at. I think it's interesting. I can think about when I first started. There's so much to learn. I was sharing with somebody the other day, I feel like I just got started because it takes so long to figure out how to be really effective, right? It's easy to meet people. It's easy to listen to people's stories or their concerns, right? That's the easy part. The hard part is trying to bring in resources to solve them and navigating things at the county level, at the state level, at the federal level, and saying, how do we navigate this to make an impact? It takes a long time. So I feel like there were, certainly in the beginning, there was some wasted time of just not knowing that I could pick up the phone and say, hey, this is, Mayor Matten, and I need this resource. I think it took me a while to get into that group. And I think I was not overly effective. Certainly I can think about relationships with residents, with businesses or things like that. Over time you go back and go, I wish I hadn't said that, or I wish I had listened more carefully. I would, so I can absolutely look back and say that there are people or relationships that I wish I had taken more time to nurture or to grow so that I could be more helpful. It's a challenge, right? At the end of the day, this is a volunteer job, right? It's all volunteer. Somebody asked me the other day, "Well, so what's your salary?" I'm like, it's zero. Right, there's not a dime here. And, depending on the time, there's weeks where it's 1 hour or 2 hours of time. There's weeks where it's 25, 30 hours, putting time in and spending a lot of time, and it's zero. And there's a lot, and there are people that get mad at you, right? There's people that get frustrated. There are people that wish you had done it a different way. At the end of the day, we're all neighbors, right? And at the end of the day, whether I'm reelected or Mr. Spencer's reelected, it doesn't matter in a sense. Like, we're neighbors. If somebody needs my help and comes knocking on my door, I'm going to help them. I know that's been true. There were a lot of times when I was first elected that I would call them and say, "I need this. What do I do?" Or, "Can you help me with this?" We were helping a friend with an immigration issue, and I called him and I said, how do we navigate this? And he's all, like I said, for me, he's Mayor Emeritus. He is Kennett Square and has very deep relationships. So yes, I would absolutely look back and say that there are absolutely relationships and issues that I would go back and say, gosh, I wish I had sat down and listened more, been more patient with, or maybe not cast it aside so fast.
Sure. Thank you very much for your honesty on that question. Last question for you.
I should have been more visible. I should have developed a calendar that had virtually every activity going on in the community, and I should have been present in all of those activities. Now, I tend to be fairly visible. I do a lot of things and I'm visible, but there are certain areas where I feel like I let some folks down because I wasn't there. That sort of thing to me is important. To pay more attention to independent voters, to make sure that people who are independent voters, we talk all the time about the red and the blue, but the independent voters are kind of like ignored, and I should have spent more time with them to understand what their thoughts were. Veterans, that's another group of people who, twice a year we say thank you for your service. We do it on Veterans Day, we do it Memorial Day, but the rest of the year, are there things that they think that I should have been apprised of? It's up to me, it would have been up to me to reach out to them. And if I have the opportunity to do it, that's a group that I want to do, that I want to reach out to. So visibility, just letting people know that I'm there and that what they are doing is important to me, because again, this is not about being a politician, it's about being a public servant. And public servants need to do exactly what that said, be of service.
One half of this conversation has reached its end. We probably going to go over the 7 o'clock time for a little bit, but not too much. I want to hand it over to Avery, and again, she'll be going around the audience and asking and allowing you folks to ask questions. And if you have a question, just raise your hand. She'll come over to you. Just state your name and then ask the question. And again, I ask you to be polite and courteous toward not only the candidates, but to fellow audience members. So, Avery?
Yes. Okay, it's on. All right. Who wants to start?
Hi, my name's Carrie Dickman. I'd like to start with Mr. Spencer and then follow with the second part of the question for Mayor Fetick. My question is about the building of the parking garage and the debt service we took on. For Mr. Spencer, what were your thoughts when the parking garage was in the approval process, when it was being built, and the debt the borough was taking on for it, in light of 8 more years of debt service and then sewer expansion, and what is that going to mean for taxes?
I don't have an answer. I honestly don't have an answer. When was that built? That was built in
Oh,
Wow.
2006, 8?
All right. So the question again, ask me the first part of the question again, please.
What were your thoughts in leading the council as mayor when the discussions were occurring about the building of that garage and the debt that the borough was going to have to take on to build it and the sustainability of paying off that debt? And now we jump forward to an aging sewer system and $20 million that we're going to need to come up with.
I mean, I'm not going to convolute an answer. I don't have an answer for you. I have to think about that.
Same question? Yeah, sure.
Yeah, you were on the other side. You inherited the debt.
So the parking garage is part of the parking fund, which is its own enterprise fund. So it is not covered through property taxes, right? So the property taxes that come in, currently, 59% of the property tax that comes in is dedicated to the general overhead, right? It takes care of administration, the police department, public works, salaries, those types of things. 25% of the property tax that comes in is dedicated to fire and EMS. 15% is dedicated to capital improvement projects, and about 1% is the referendum contribution to the library. So the parking fund's job is to be self-sufficient and to pay for the debt, which it has been. So the parking fund has been self-sufficient and it pays for the debt that's there. So it's a separate fund, separate line item. The challenge that we are going to face from last year is Genesis, which contributes between $275,000 and $300,000 per year to the parking fund. As part of the Genesis building built, they had to contribute, their use and occupancy permit is tied to they had to buy so many parking spaces. So last year, they defaulted on their parking payments as part of their bankruptcy. Now, thankfully, after they went into bank, they are now paying currently, but they have not paid the back due. The back due, we're hoping we'll get some portion of that through the bankruptcy court as it comes out of bankruptcy. But it has been self-sufficient, and it's served through the parking fund of the fees that come in there. So going forward, you asked about the sewer system. So the sewer system that we currently have, it functions fine as it currently is. However, for any additional use, right now we're running about 85% capacity of what the sewer treatment plant can run. To expand the sewer treatment plant is somewhere between $20 and $25 million. And that is going to have to happen, not just for expansion here, but thankfully I expect the council, this is a council decision, but I expect that we will work with Kennett Township, who would like to buy sewer access from us. New Garden Township has some users for that. If we can take that and spread it across more users, it would help to defray those costs on the residents. It is going to require federal grant money. It's going to require state money. We did have Chrissy Houlihan out already, and it was a fun time touring her through the sewer plant on there and showing her the plant and saying, okay, we need to start thinking about the grants that we can get here. We had Senator John Kane and Chris Stappy there. We walked them through the plants and said, we're going to have to band together here to do that. We're probably about 5 years out from doing that, maybe 4 before that's done. Right now, they're finishing up the study on what it'll look like. So we're probably about 5 years out from having to do that. But it's going to take partnerships, right? It's going to take federal money. It's going to take state money. It's going to take county money. It's going to take a lot.
Avery, I see a question right here.
Running. Hi, my name is Jess Casson. My question, so you've touched on it. You've touched on growth and you've touched on expansion here in the borough. And Mayor Fetick, you've just touched on it a bit, right, with the township. My question is ultimately, I live up on Hazel. There's been a ton of expansion on that side of town. You've got the flats on Miller Hill, the building on either side of Walnut Road past the Route 1 overpass. Now the building that's happening virtually right on the road across from the soccer fields at the park.
But I guess my question is what is your role in working with the township, and what does that look like? Because you've addressed the sewer, right? That's one piece. They've had the road torn up. We can't go up and down the street. But then also just traffic. I mean, being able to get out of town at 7 o'clock in the morning, you've got to take 15 minutes. So what does that role look like, and what is the plan for the future?
Yeah, regional planning is a tough one, right? Because everybody gets to do their own thing. The challenge of the Commonwealth system is that every municipality has its own government, right? So the township has their supervisors, the borough has the council members, and regional planning is not, it's not easy. I do think if you go to some of the Kennett Township meetings, that they are working very hard to control what their growth looks like. And I do think that the supervisors there care and are concerned about what the traffic impacts are. But it's a challenge, right? Because developers want to develop, it's hard to stop them, right? Like there are, when somebody owns 40 acres and it's zoned residential, there's not a lot you can do to stop it, right? There's controls and checks you can put in. I think it's really important for our shared services, which is why I think regionalizing police would work, why I think that regionalizing maybe public works or things like that we can share equipment and stuff like that is really critical on the cost. But gosh, I don't know, other than working together. There used to be a very active regional planning commission. That kind of fell apart. It's not operating the way it used to. So it's a challenge.
Yeah, infrastructure is a major concern, certainly traffic. So when we think in terms of the NVF property, let's say, and let's say that project goes through fruition, and then you end up with about 8,000 residents in town. I don't see our streets able to accommodate that. We've talked about the sewer system that has to be redone. We know that under current situation, to add that many citizens is simply not something that's feasible. So I think you just have to thwart it. I think you don't want to tell developers no, but I think you have to. At some point, you have to. You just have to say, we simply cannot accommodate what you want to do.
Do we have another question from the audience? A show of hands? We've got a question right down here, Avery.
So my name is Amy. As someone who just recently opened a business in the town, what are your plans with the truck traffic? Because the semis going through town, one, are noisy. They rattle the windows. They have to be causing damage to the roads. It's almost impossible to hear the phone. So every day, like today, there was a huge truck with all the hay bales. There's not a farm in the borough. Where are they going? Why are they not taking Route 1? Why are they not taking other routes?
It's interesting. One of the observations that we made during my tenure before was that there's no way station on Route 1. So there's no reason for them to come through town. There's absolutely no reason except one. And that is, if they want to do business, if they need to do business, say in the Tufkenneman area, then they have to go down Newark Road. And if you go down Newark Road to where it intersects Baltimore Pike, there's no way that trucks can turn there. So again, I think Mayor made a good point here when he was talking about regionalization and a regional commission. This is where we have to work with that neighbor to say, hey, look, here's the deal. Right? They've talked about Newark Road for I don't know how many years, right? Something has to happen in that regard. That's why you see the traffic come through town. They can't navigate that. So it's a very viable point. It's like when we have opportunities like Third Thursday or whatever. I'm sitting out on the sidewalk and some truck goes by when I'm having dinner. No, I'm not interested. I mean, I hear what you're saying. So again, it's going to take working with particularly our neighbor to the west to say, hey, what can we do to make sure that road, that Newark Road project that you've talked about forever, comes to life? And once that does, I think you might see a reduction in that traffic.
You're talking about the Tough Cannon project that's being coordinated by New Garden Township?
Yeah.
You say coordinated by? I know what you're saying. I know
Well,
that's what
they are taking some credit on this.
okay.
But go ahead, your thoughts.
I do have some good news on that. It is on PennDOT's schedule for 2027. So the design work was done. It is the only way you get rid of the truck traffic on State Street. State Street is a state road. We, the borough, cannot restrict truck traffic. We can't do it. It is not allowed. The one good thing is that we did send one of our police officers to become a truck safety officer and be able to enforce the commercial truck laws. So we do have our own scales. We do have the ability to pull over commercial trucks and to do those inspections, put them out of service. And he is dedicated to doing that. We've been short 2 officers, one to a resignation and one due to a health issue. We expect to be back up to full service in January. Then we can get our truck officer back doing truck inspections. We did work with our neighbors on the redesign of Newark Road. It is a public-private partnership with PennDOT. The business owners, including Manfredi's, purchased the right-of-ways along Old Baltimore Pike down to Manfredi's cold storage there. The design work is done. PennDOT has approved it. There is private money going into that from several of the businesses there and PennDOT funds. But this is how old I think it was approved maybe 12 years ago. And it's been sitting there, but it is officially on PennDOT's schedule for 2027. So whether it stays there or not, it's a whole other story, but it's on the schedule.
If I may, just a little addendum to that. It was interesting that, again, in my tenure, we had, every once in a while, we do truck inspections. When the word got out that the borough of Kennett Square was doing truck inspections, for a period of time, we did not see truck traffic. Interesting.
Avery, we'll take a few more questions.
Hello, and I apologize for being very late. I was stuck in Cape May, of all places. My name is Barry Hazard. I have 2 questions. One has nothing to do with the other, if I may. The first question is, and it may have already been answered, and I apologize for that if I'm being redundant. What have either one of you, or Leon, if you become mayor, what kind of commitment have you made to the community to protect the undocumented immigrants and documented immigrants who live and work in this community from ICE? Would you make a commitment to not have the police department cooperate with them, which many municipalities are doing?
That was a discussion that was brought up before, but in respect to you, sir, we're going to give the mayoral candidates another shot at it. Thank you.
My other question is, I saw I think we're Chester Water Authority. That's our supplier, right? Is that correct? Chester Water Authority for water. They're in receivership right now, and there's a 14% increase request from the receivers, and I'm wondering how that may impact us. That's it. Thank you.
Good questions.
Regarding Chester Water Authority, they provide about, depending on the day, 10 to 14% of our water supply. We have our own wells. So we only purchase, some days it's down as low as 8%. So we purchase, when we start running low on water, then we purchase from Chester Water Authority. It is critical that Chester Water Authority remains independent and does not get sold to Aqua. That is not in anybody's best interest. We have done multiple things regarding that. We've sent letters, requesting that the state not participate, not allow that to happen. I've been asked to provide testimony in Harrisburg regarding that issue and how it would impact our borough. So we have to fight against that. We've got to fight against that every day because we do not want what's happening in New Garden Township with Aqua taking over their system to happen here. So we have to do it. But thankfully, if they did, and we didn't have the choice, it's really a small percentage of what we purchase on there. We gravity feed from the Octorara Reservoir, so we get very low-cost water to the borough. There's not one pump station from Octorara Reservoir to the borough's water source. So we're able to keep those costs low, and if we can stay with them, we can keep the water costs low. Regarding immigration, I think I commented earlier that we wrote the policy for the police department. That is one place that Mr. Spencer and I get to work with is the oversight of the police department. We immediately rewrote our policy and procedure manual. on that. Our officers do not participate in any type of ICE enforcement. They will stand by and not participate to be there if it's necessary. ICE does generally, not generally, on occasion will tell us that they're going to come and serve a warrant on there. That is the only time that we hear it. And if they've got a judicial warrant, they have a judicial warrant, right? There's nothing we can do about that, but we're not going to participate. We will not hold anybody in custody for ICE. We will not do that in any way, shape, or form. We also have a policy that we do not ask anybody, whether they're arrested, a victim, or a witness, what their immigration status is. So we do not participate. That is a federal issue, and we're not going to participate in that in a local way in any way, shape, or form.
Leon, comment?
So, Aqua, the way I understood it, and this came up about 2.5 years ago when I was on a run for the state representative, what they would do is they would come into an area and they would make their own assessment of your water system. And oftentimes they would say to communities that your water system was deficient, that it was, say, 75 years old, and that they would come in and they would, at a greatly reduced rate, refurbish that. Now, as an extension of that, and for municipalities that did it, as an extension of that, then they would, of course, then want to provide the service. And that's where you saw the cost really escalate. So it's smart for us, and I agree with Matt, we need to avoid that. We need to keep them out of here. But again, if they do, it's as he said, it's a small percentage. Some of these numbers, by the way, that we're discussing tonight, I'm 16 years removed from. So I don't have a lot of answers in that regard. But nonetheless, I agree with him that if they have to come, they're going to come in, then it will be at a very minimal, their service will be minimal. As far as ICE is concerned, you know, anytime you decide to go against the federal government, there's all kinds of challenges that you could face. I am very proud of the stance that this community has taken and said, you know, we're not out to violate the law in any respect, but we're not going to let ICE agents cause our residents to be in violation either. We're going to protect them as much as we can without being in violation ourselves. I'm also concerned that someone talked about us being not sister city, a sanctuary city. As I understand it, if we were to agree to do that, that would have potentially an impact on funding for the school system. That is something we just absolutely positively cannot do. The school system has its own challenges, so that's not something we would do. So anyway, I'm trying to answer the question as best I can. We're not going to cooperate as far as we can avoid cooperating with the federal law.
We'll take one more question.
Yeah, one last question.
In the back, sir? Does anyone else have a question? Raise your hand.
Hi,
Okay. All right, we'll just end it with you, sir.
Hi, Fred McCarthy, Mayor Spencer and Mayor Fetick. How are you? What would the regionalized police look like? You're saying that you want to be able to have control over the local police department, which is wonderful. But are you going to be joining the Southern Chester County Regional Police Department? And in that case, will you have that same control over your police department? Yeah. What will it look like for both of you?
If I may speak to this and tell you that this concept is not new. This was something that came up to my recollection with Chief Zanino back in 2007, 2008. There was a discussion. In fact, when the regional police department was formed, we made the decision as Kennett Square Borough not to participate. We didn't want to do it. And that was based on citizen concerns. And the citizen concerns had to do with the coverage. Would our involvement in the regional program minimize the coverage for the borough? You know, if we have at a given time 2 officers, 3 officers on duty, and there was a situation in Kennett Township, let's say, would that take away from our our coverage. So that was a concern. The other big thing, believe it or not, had to do with the fact that you had these different departments with their own chiefs. There were chiefs for each department. So who would have oversight of the regional department? And believe it or not, that caused some flap. And you could see that. So anyway, we decided at that time not to do it. But I just want to give you that history, that this is not a new concept. In my opinion, I think there's some validity to it. There's some real validity to it from an economic standpoint. It seems to me that having it regionalized, there's the potential of not spending as much money as we do now as an independent department. That's my thought.
Yeah. I don't see it happening overnight or quickly, right? It's a challenge. We've sat down multiple times over the years when Chief Zanino was still chief, so maybe 2018, with Kennett Township and New Garden Township, and we wrestled with, how do you bring the officers together that have different pension funds and different benefits? And right, it's not easy. We started some preliminary conversations again this summer on what does that look like? And again, kind of the challenge was merging pension funds, merging rank officers, right? So if you have officers, that are a certain rank and they're hoping to be promoted to chief one day, now those opportunities go away. It's not an easy solution, but I do think we've got to start looking further down the field. The challenge, again, is that when we all work in these independent bubbles, you miss these opportunities to really collaborate and share some costs and provide opportunities. Even, again, with the officers, if within a larger department, they have an opportunity to specialize and grow their careers and things like that. Do I know what it looks like? No, I don't know. Yes, if you regionalize, you definitely lose, control. But I think you lose day-to-day control, right? You have a voice in it. At some point, if we want to grow, you got to be willing to give up the control, the day-to-day, if that's the right thing to do. If it's going to save us money, if it's going to provide a better service. I will say that when we had some preliminary conversations this summer, that I was very clear in saying we're not going to downgrade the level of service or coverage that we have. Right? And I also, what would be important for me is that officers that would want to work in the borough be allowed to stay in the borough because they know the businesses, right? They know. So I want that same officer who's built those relationships and knows, the different business owners and like, oh yeah, they don't usually leave that light on at night. We should go in there. I don't want to lose that. I don't want to lose that community policing feel. So if we can keep the community policing feel and it becomes some type of savings and it becomes a better opportunity, we should be open to it. So I think we should always be exploring these things. All right. So I think we just have to look at them.
I want to thank everyone for being here tonight. I hope to see all of you at the polls. I wish to thank Chris Manna again for their hospitality tonight. Thank you so much, Chris.
Thank you.
In the library. Lastly, I want to thank our two candidates. Let's give them a round of applause. And we wish both of you the best of luck on behalf of the Chester County Press. And the first word tonight was from Avery Lieberman. The last word will be from Avery Lieberman. Thank you.
I just want to say thank you all for coming tonight. I am truly honored to be a part of this very strong community. I wish Matt and Leon the best of luck, and I can't wait to see the future of Kennett. She is great. She is beautiful. So thank you.
Thank you. Yo, bro.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Great questions.
Yeah.